Superintendents from District 87, District 41, and the DuPage County Regional Office of Education. The purpose of the League of Women Voters is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation in government. The League works to increase understanding of major public policy issues and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League does not support or oppose any political party or any candidate. I would now like to introduce Candy Purdom, our League of Women Voters, Glen, Ellyn, Vice President for Programs, and she will introduce our panelists, and Heather will, and tell us about this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, welcome everyone. We're very glad to see you on our first community meeting of our new year, and it's also the new school year. So hey, that all kind of works together, doesn't it? A new school year and a new league year. So we're very happy to have you here. Before we get started, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what's going on tonight. We have our school superintendents. We're so pleased that you could join us tonight. This is a very special thing to have all of our local superintendents and the regional superintendent from DuPage County. And so I know it's gonna be a wonderful night, and Pam Zimmermann will be our moderator tonight. And I wanted to tell you that the reason that we're doing schools, this is one of the pillars of our group. You know, we try to support democracy, and public schools are very important to us. So that's why we're very happy to have this. And our last spring, we did adopt a new position on education. I will read that to you. Glasses, please. We reaffirm our support of quality education. Quality education should be sufficiently diverse to meet the needs of all students. Public education should provide a foundation for lifelong learning, which includes critical thinking and communication skills, as well as fundamental knowledge to function independently in society. And so that was a position that Pam was involved with over at the Wheaton League, and we adopted it as well. So I would like to introduce our education director, Heather Fleming, and she will take it from here. Thank you for coming.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'll briefly tell you how things are going to go. My name is Heather Fleming. I'm the education director. So here's how it's going to go. I'm going to finish this very brief introduction, and then each of the superintendents will have about 10 minutes to introduce themselves, to provide some background on their districts, knowing that not everybody is aware of all the great work that's going on there, and talk about their priorities. And then Pam will help facilitate a conversation with them with some questions that we've prepared. And then we'll wrap up. So I wanted to briefly introduce each of the superintendents, and thank you all for coming, especially on the school night at the beginning of the school year. So starting closest to me, we have Amber Clark, who is the DuPage County Regional Superintendent. Then we have David Larson, who is the superintendent for District 87. We have Melissa. We have Melissa Kaskowski, who is the superintendent for District 41. And I was obviously reading my list of order. We have Doug Icarius from District 89. So with no further ado, I will be quiet and let them begin. Who would like to start? Amber, would you want to start?
Sure,
if you'd like to.
And I don't have to take 10 minutes.
You can take as many minutes or as few minutes as you want, so.
I know you guys are counting on your 10 minutes, right?
Give us each 2 minutes quick.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amber Burke, and I'm the regional superintendent of schools for the county. I was elected in November and took over in July. Prior to the election, I was the assistant regional superintendent and was there for 2 years. If you aren't familiar with the regional office, we do help support all 42 school districts in the county. And we do that with multiple services. So all of our teacher background check and licensure goes through our office. Any students who need support with truancy and school attendance, that comes through our office. We provide professional learning opportunities for teachers, and we conduct health and safety and compliance visits for school districts. Not to bring a hammer, Although I am a Boilermaker, Heather and I did bond on that, but more to help people get into compliance. We want to go above compliance to competency and really build capacity in the schools as much as we can with any of the new school code that is passed from our state board of education. So that's just a little bit in a nutshell of what the ROE is. Turn it over to Dave.
Okay, I'm gonna stand up because I waved my hands and my colleagues. And I'll just use this microphone.
Yes, you might need to turn it back on.
Okay, great. So good, great to be here. I was just reminiscing, 12 years ago this month, League of Women Voters invited me. My first couple months on the job. Was anybody there? Does anybody remember? Okay. And I remember thinking, what an impressive group of people. And I thought, some of these people are gonna be great board members, school board members. And one was Erica Nelson, remember? And Margaret De La Rosa. I distinctly remember speaking to you both, and sure enough, you were a board member, and then Margaret became one. So, real quick, I want to stay within my 10 minutes. I just want to like fly and strafe and bird, kind of the highlight of who we are in District 87 as a district, comprehensive high school district. And I have over here our propaganda, right? I call it a kit. Lots of good information. There's a flyer, which I'll talk about, and then some handouts, which you don't have to take it, but if you do, spend 10-15 minutes and it provides so much good information. Real quick too, I'm gonna have 3 questions as a quiz. So you have to pay attention. And there's prizes, but I think I have prizes for everybody. So the stress, you won't be stressed on your assessment. So my back to school address to our staff, and coming up, we have the State Board of Education visiting Glenbard South on October 18th. And I shared it, I will share it coming up. There's a photo I love, which is a mountain peak. And you'll see it if you get this packet. It's the Carson Peaks. It's one of the 7 famous peaks mountain climbers love to climb. It's the tallest one in Oceania. And I grew up in New Guinea, 5 days walk, closest outpost to these peaks. So we had lots of mountain climbers come through when I was a young individual. And so that photo has 4 peaks. And there's really 4 ideals. We call them ideals, what we strive for. If you were around Glenbard District anytime for 5 or 10 minutes in our village, you would see these 4 evidence. So let me just walk through real quick. First is national state standards. So our curriculum, our teaching practice, we strive to hit standards that you as parents in our community and our state expects. Of course, we have a scorecard that our district board has and keeps up. We've had the same scorecard for 10 years. And each high school has the same scorecard that is aligned with the district scorecard. Course sequence, the rigorous course sequence that students take. So bio through physics, with chemistry, algebra 1, algebra 2 trig, with geometry, passing rates, AP and dual credit, SAT threshold of a 10-10, used to be the ACT. And complementing that is our profile of graduate. And those are 6 competencies that we developed with descriptors, also by department. Each department has their descriptors for these competencies, and they are transformational skills that are embedded, and we drive them into teaching and learning. So the profile of graduate skills complement obviously the standards that we're teaching, and it's something that's critically important. So being self-empowered, thinking critically, creating, communicating, embracing diversity and collaboration. We have a lot of professional development. We have a human design process that highlights teachers being designers, embedding those transformational skills along with the standards, along with strong reading and writing skills, with complex tasks and texts. And the theme really is high challenge, high support. Obviously, we've been successful. You'll see a scattergram where we outperform our peers, strong AP enrollment, we're twice state and national average in participation and passing on AP. And then with 3 or higher, you know, you have 6, 5, or 3, or 4, excuse me, 4, 6, 5, 4, 3 with scores. One statistic what I'm very excited about, 2,400 students since 2016 of underrepresented students, many Black or brown, many in poverty, have passed, participated in AP courses. 20% of all, or the top 20% of all high schools. Obviously, Glenbard South and West would be a lot higher than that. This year, we have 1,000 students participating in dual credit. A lot of these kids path right into COD, and then 80% of our graduates enrolled in 2 or 4-year schools compared to 62% nationally. And then 91% graduate 6 years. We're really pleased with that. So deep learning and adhering to national state standards. Those are the 2 of the peaks that we strive for. The third, interest, passion, and character. When you're around our buildings, you see kids participating in sports, activities, visual performing arts, theater, etc. And shaping their character, adding to their interest and passion is such an important ideal. And then lastly, 4th ideal, fairness, belonging, and esteem. We have a very diverse population. In fact, 42% is white, the rest are non-white. So we have a number of different languages, culture, ethnic groups, backgrounds, and creating a fair and impartial environment is key. In fact, during the pandemic, we developed this document, we're really pleased, culture and practice of equity and belonging. And it spells out why it's important, our journey since 2007, and our areas of focus as we move forward in student voice and leadership, participating, engaging families, professional development, personal growth, very, very important areas of work. Creating fairness and esteem for our families. We talk about the word esteem. Do our students feel valued and esteemed? Do parents come in when they're building in the buildings? Do they feel valued and esteemed? And then, so real quick, here's the first question. You know the community boundaries well, and I have a in your packet a boundary map. Okay, here's a quick question. What is the glaring systemic flaw with our current enrollment boundaries? Anybody want to answer that? If you know our enrollment boundaries? Carroll Stream, Glendale Heights, Lombard, Glen Ellyn, mainly. And then we have a few areas of downers, Wheaton, Addison, Hanover Park. Anybody want to take a stab at that? We have a community of 35,000 people that doesn't have a high school. Guess which one it is? Glendale Heights. Naming a town anywhere in America that size that doesn't have a high school. So we work really hard compensating and supporting those students and families. So it's a lot tougher. Think about it. You have your own high school, there's lots of tradition and lore and activities on Friday night, etc. So we divide that community up into 3 different directions: east, west, and north. All right, 2 things that we're working on, real quick as I wrap up. We're laying the groundwork for a potential referendum in March, and we've been discussing this at the board level for at least a year and a half. We have community forums going on actually right now at South and the other buildings. And it is for investment in educational spaces. We passed, we had a 100-year, we had a 154 million spent the last 10 years, we had a 10-year facilities plan, we could only do infrastructure under the hood type work. So parking lots, roofs, mechanical systems, bathrooms, some science labs, and then the science wing at West. But we couldn't get to real educational spaces. So we're excited about that referendum, and you'll see more information about that. Secondly, and lastly, we have a new schedule. This year we launched Glenbard Hour, which is 2 42-minute periods a week, Monday and Friday, for opportunity for the student choice for getting support, advocacy, advisory time, and teachers are able to help and support students make up tests, get work in their extra work in their areas. And then next year we launch 2 90-minute blocks on Wednesdays and Thursdays. That will be an opportunity for more student engaged projects, lab work, extended assignments. And right now we're spending a lot of time with professional development as teachers develop and shift their lessons. We're prepared for that. Okay, last 2 questions on the quiz, real quick. Not counting we had a 2014 referendum that added to that work, 35 million. If you take that away, going back to the inception of the district, what has been the total referendum debt added since the inception of District 87? Take a guess. All this referendum would have built east, north, south, and the field houses. Guess what that number was? 55 million. Only 55 million, that took, right? So with inflation, we would never have been able to build all that out. So to give you an idea of the increase in costs. And so you'll see information, there's some slides we put in the packet that outlines a lot of good information. All right, last question real quick, and I'm running out of my limit. So what anti-public legislation, which was voted out in the spring, is trying to make its way back for the politics in Springfield?
Vouchers.
That's the kid. So I have in the packet is an amazing editorial. Becky Simon. Anybody know Becky?
Yeah.
That's a really good. This is really good. And I wrote her a note. So tell her to answer me. And thank you for my note. She I have a copy of it. Read it. It's really, really good. And she articulates the points of focusing on public education dollars going directly to public education. Not choices where it results in more separation, more exclusiveness, more elitist, more racism, etc. So, all right, so your prize of participating in the quiz is a baggage tag. And that's not for everybody, so make sure you leave with a packet and your prize. All right.
All right, if it's okay, I'm gonna stay seated. We're gonna take a little different approach from District 41 because that's how we roll. On your tables, you have a handout in case you want to know this intimately and take it home with you, but I'd like to do a little bragging and a little PR and a little bagging when it comes to 4 big things happening this year in District 41. So our first is we're in the process of rolling out high impact tutoring in partnership with the Glen Children's Resource Center. For those of you who follow along, one of the things you'll hear us talk about a great deal, as does our board, we recognize that we have an achievement gap. That's not uncommon in a high performing school district. Part of our work has been to find other districts that look like us, have similar demographics and achieve where we are, possibly even higher, who have a smaller achievement gap, and we can find them. We can find districts whose achievement is lower, who have a smaller achievement gap, but a district who's performing where we are or better,
which is where we really do want to model ourselves after, we can't find them, so keep that in mind. But one of the proven strategies that is supported by research to close the achievement gap is high impact tutoring. And it really is a simple concept where kids form a relationship with their tutor. It's about that one-to-one connection. We provide the training, we provide the materials. I've gone through the training. ISB has allowed us to participate in their training, even though we don't meet the criteria as a district that qualifies for their free training, but because we were interested and willing in doing this, they let us in. So the goal of our program is obviously to work towards closing that achievement gap. We have 75 students in our GECRC program who need high impact tutoring, and so far we have 20 tutors. So I'm going to make an appeal and beg a little bit. If anybody is so inclined, please think about it. It's not intimidating. If you like kids and you love to read, this would be a good fit for you. But very excited that we at least get to start rolling this out, and our goal is to roll it into Hadley someday. They have a small GECRC program, as does Abraham Lincoln, but we're starting focusing on Churchville. And to give you an idea of what this is, the small group tutoring at the elementary level may be 2 to 4 students in a group by the same tutor 3 times a week. That session is usually about 30 minutes. And as I said, we provide all of the training and all of the materials and all of the support there for tutors to do and be very successful. In grades 4 to 5, it's about a 45-minute tutoring session. So if you're interested, there is information on this flyer about reaching out to Leah Harding, and she will answer your questions. And if you're willing, we will be forever grateful to you. And we will bring you to a board meeting and give you a certificate and sing your praises. But if you are interested in kids and love to read, this would be a wonderful opportunity, and we would really be grateful. Our next big 4 things is that full day kindergarten is finally coming to District 41. So, as many of you may know, we were not successful at referendum, and we learned a lot about the importance of boundaries to people and not changing boundaries. Unfortunately, if you're going to build a new elementary school, somebody has to go to it, and so it does involve a boundary change. That being said, the day after we learned, or really that evening, our brains were thinking on how do we do this, and so coming back to this with a smaller scale than building another elementary school is really to build, and this is what we are actively in the process of building, an addition onto Churchill School. As you know, we brought additional property there to do this, but we are in the process of making all of the plans. It will be a 12 classroom, multi-purpose room, lots of flexible space. It will be a point of pride for the Churchill community. So we are slated to open doors in the fall of 2025. And we will maintain the option of half day at the home elementary schools, although I suspect in a year or two nobody's come on that option anymore. But very excited. This has been a process and a conversation and heartache for some and a mission for others that spans over 16 years time. So really congratulations to the board and to the district and to the community for being able to make this happen and bring it to our students. This is one of the few things that sets us apart, not in a good way, from 90% of the districts in the state of Illinois. And if we're serious about closing the achievement gap, this is something that we need to bring to our children, and we are. One of the other big things that we've done this year is we have 2 new positions in the district, and we call them TOSAs, or Teacher on Special Assignment. And what we did is, this is our dipping our toes in the area of teacher leadership opportunities. So for teachers who are very veteran, very experienced, have honed their profession and their skill set, often look for something, a way that they can impact kids and impact their building to a greater degree, without leaving and joining the ranks of administration, because everybody thinks we don't impact kids or do anything, but which isn't true. But Teacher leadership is extremely important to us and it is to our teachers as well, but we saw a need to do something different. And so our first TOSA position is positive discipline interventionist and restorative practices. And so we have a teacher, for those of you who know her, you love her, Dina Savara at Hadley, very veteran, very loved teacher. She has spent her whole career here, and one of her absolute strengths is the relationship that she builds with students. And her whole focus is to build relationships with kids, build relationships with kids who often find themselves in that discipline cycle, and to find restorative opportunities. And for anyone who thinks that restorative means it's an easy way to not have a consequence, that is absolutely not true. The power in sitting down at a table with somebody that you wronged in some way and having to own your behavior, but also hear how it impacted somebody else is far more impactful than a lunch recess detention. So Dina's whole focus this year is to help staff embrace this concept, to build relationships with kids, to start building a skill set for teachers and colleagues in the building and finding those restorative opportunities for students. And we are absolutely already in our discipline data seeing an impact from her role. And with the goal that we might bring this position down to the elementary level down the road. Our second TOSA position is a technology integration coordinator. As you all know, in our district, we are rich with technology, but you have those early adopters and just technology pioneers in classrooms who run with everything and trial everything and are just enthusiastic. And then some people like me are a little less, automatic with technology and need a bit more support. And so this role went to a staff member, Kelly Johnson, and Kelly is just a pioneer user of technology and has a skill set for working with her colleagues and coaching them up. And so we really wanted this to be a roll your sleeves up position to get into classrooms and model how to be innovative with technology and change your instruction. So Kelly is working across the district with teachers in classrooms. And she's also starting to connect with the Glen Public Library. They have a person there who is an AI specialist. And so we are building our knowledge base and a plan for how does generative AI fit into the education world and what does that mean in an elementary education setting. So Kelly has her pulse on that and will be helping us move forward and plan around AI and what does that mean, but also really working to coach everybody up so that all of the technology that we invest in is used for kids in the best way possible and to be innovative. Our last four big things in District 41 is actually due to a federal grant that we received. It is a congressional funded community grant that was processed through Sean Kasten's office. The district is the recipient of $250,000 to fund mental health supports for students. What we will be announcing and rolling out in a phased way this year are digital platforms for mental health supports for families. We believe that there are two key priorities in this. Number one, we have to put the resources and decisions in the hands of parents. What works best for you and your family? And that we want this to happen outside of the school day. We have a whole slew of supports that we provide to students during the school day, but we also know that the more you can pull kids out of instruction, you create a different problem. So our priority is to make resources available to our families, educate, inform them on how to make these choices and engage with these platforms, and put it in the hands of parents. And fortunately for us, we get to do this using federal dollars and then monitor our data and our implementation and make some decisions for the district moving forward about what's the best fit and how do we sustain this long term. One of the phase model that we will be introducing is an online platform that is called Parent Guidance. And we learned about this through our affiliation with AASA in 2025. It's a partnership that the district has that has really been the basis for our strategic plan. This will be made available to all families in District 41, and it affords parents opportunities for coaching, mentoring, video sessions on topics that might be relative to your family, but it also has an escalation protocol. So if a member of your family is in crisis, if your student is in crisis, this platform has practitioners that will be able to help you address and direct you to local resources in that moment. The next phase, we will be rolling out something that is specific to Hadley age students. And that gets more into a platform that is for kids with groups that are facilitated by practitioners, licensed practitioners. There's an online component to it, but again, it also has an escalation protocol for kids who might be in crisis, who need more intense and immediate supports, and it will provide that as well. We will roll all of this out to our parents so that they know how to use, they know what is the best fit. With these dollars, we are also partnering with the YWCA for the first time to bring a specialist on board who can work with our more intense needs, kids who have school refusals that we can't even get them in the door, or who have such a high level of anxiety that once they're there, they really can't engage. This specialist can connect with parents at home and kids at home and help them network with resources and just address some more intense issues. That will be a piece of this phase out rollout. And let's see what else is on this. Approximately around January, we anticipate doing a virtual town hall where we will help parents start connecting the dots. But this will start soon. We'll pull it all together when we're ready to roll out the Hadley piece and do that in a very big way. So I'm not at liberty to share really specific information tonight because it's going to the board for approval on Monday, and then we can really start sharing information about who our partners are and what that is going to look like. But those are 4 big things, not the only big things going on, but 4 big things happening this year.
Good evening, I'm Doug Ecarius, 3 months on the job. So I do not have a quiz for you or prizes, so I apologize for that. Learning, that's a lot of what's happening in my role right now. When I'm in the buildings, the students call me Mr. E, a lot of staff call me Mr. E. One of the things I love about being an 89. I thought it'd be important for you to know a little bit more about me. I'm in my 27th year of education, all in DuPage County. I started as a middle school math teacher in Naperville and Indian Prairie 204. And then I was in Hinsdale Elementary District for 11 years. I was an assistant principal at the middle school, then I was an elementary principal for 7 years, and then went into HR. When 204 had asked me to come back, I did 6 additional years there as an assistant superintendent for HR, and then I was deputy superintendent. I had the joy of leading the reopening efforts during that time, which was quite the challenge. But it also transitioned to me. I oversaw all of our curriculum instruction in 204. We had 34 schools, pre-K through 22 years old, a lot of different programming. And I was fortunate to be able to oversee and have those experiences there. I'm so excited to be in District 89. It's a great place to be. We have 5 schools, 4 elementary schools and a middle school, just over 2,200 students. One of the best things for me was even on the first day of school, I got to be in each school for at least an hour. It took me 4 days to just pop into all the schools in my previous role. And this is really what I wanted to build those relationships. That's what I'm focused on right now, learning, building relationships, getting to know staff, getting to know students, getting to know community members. I'm trying to get to as many events as possible. And I just love it. We do have a lot of new this year. We have 6 building administrators. So we have an assistant principal and principal at our middle school, and then principals at our 4 elementaries. 4 of the 6 are new as well. So we're coming in trying to learn a lot about history as well at the same time. So both our principal and assistant principal at Glencrest are new, as well as our principal at Arborview and Westfield. And then we have 2 principals who are helping us quite a bit in understanding that history and some of the past practices. But it's really going well. At the same time, our buildings were under construction all summer. really updating some basic things, windows, lights, ceiling. We still are gonna have a little bit more construction next summer. We also did a lot to secure our entrances at the building. So we have the vestibule where first people, once they get buzzed into the first door, they have to go into the office before they can go into the rest of our building. That's important, especially with everything going on, to try to keep students as safe as possible. Things going on in our district, we have a strategic plan. We're in the third year of that strategic plan. It focuses on academic success, social emotional learning, community engagement, retaining, supporting, and attracting high quality staff, and then being efficient with our resources. The board goals this year, knowing that they have a lot of new in the district, is to focus on maintaining good working relationships and continued outreach with all stakeholders. That's students, staff, parents, and community. Ensuring support for the ongoing transition, communication and development for new staff with an openness to leverage new perspectives. They're putting a little bit on me. What am I seeing? What am I learning in this district? What thoughts do I have to help them focus on that continuous improvement, and advocating for encouraging continuous improvement across the district, and then emphasizing and supporting improved learning for all. We have a focus on equity to also close the achievement gaps. We are seeing those gaps actually growing instead of closing. We need to look at what we can do to support all students, but at the same time, how do we hold all students to those high expectations and move all students? And those are the efforts we're making. We know that a part of that comes with also, as you mentioned, with mental health support. We did add 2 psychologists this year. We now have a psychologist and a social worker in all 5 of our buildings to support students and their mental health needs. But they also serve in a lot of different capacities in that building to just how do we help support students from all different levels, as well as families, as well as our staff members. Along with that, this is a high number for a district our size, but we have 28 new teachers this year as well. We're typically, I believe, in the 5 to 15 range, but we had 28 new students. So we have seen a lot more retirements and bringing in a lot of new teachers. So we have a lot of focus on professional development for all of our staff, but with a high focus from our instructional coaches on our new teachers. We've also expanded this year thanks to the Glen Ellyn Children's Resource Center. We were in just Glen Crest Middle Schools where they were assisting with us and providing after-school support. And now that's extended over to Parkview. Just as Dr. Kay here mentioned, we need volunteers to support that program. Right away at Parkview, we filled up it. We had the capacity to do 30 and we're just about at 30 there. So we do need more volunteers for the sport. We are so appreciative of all the support we're already getting. The students are engaged and excited to be there. It is a long program after school, but it's going to be, I think, have a huge impact on our students. Both of those are in our Glen Ellyn schools at Parkview and Glen Crest. And one of the big things, a huge focus for this year is we did adopt last year a new reading curriculum. It's called Into Reading. It's a huge focus. We have not had a real comprehensive structured reading program in quite some time in the district. And so there's a lot of professional development going on, a lot of questions. Every time I'm in the buildings before the school day starts, I see teachers just with it all spread out and trying to figure out how all those components connect together. But we know that that's a high area of focus in our district, and we're looking at how we can best support our staff members. But I'm glad to be here, so thank you for inviting me. 89 is a great place to be. I feel very fortunate to be there, where I want to spend the rest of my career. So I'm glad to be here this evening. So thank you.
Well, good evening. I was introduced earlier. I'm Pam Zimmermann, and I'm really feeling great to be back in Glen Ellyn and seeing so many wonderful old friends. So thank you to the Glen Ellyn League for inviting me here tonight. I bring greetings from the Wheaton League from my colleagues just over the border there. So Good evening, and I did know that I was coming to a meeting like that, so if it looks like I wandered out of the barn, I actually did. I work as a volunteer at the Denata Equestrian Center, and we have a big event coming up. So a little bit of a plug for our fall festival on October 7th and 8th. So I think a lot of you in the audience probably have grandchildren, and it's a great place to bring. You know, they can make stick horses and ride around, and they can watch me ride around on one of our school horses too. That's what we're rehearsing for right now. So anyway, I apologize for my attire, but I just literally jumped off a horse to come here tonight. But again, I'm so glad to be back. I think you guys introduced the Glen Ellyn education position a little bit earlier, so we probably don't need to belabor that. Would you like to go right into questions or, okay? So our education position in the Wheaton League is very similar to Glen Ellyn's. And we can talk about some of the ways that that plays out probably through some of the questions that we have this evening. So I'm going to just ask the questions and welcome answers from any of our panel that would like to. And I'm sure that oh, by the way, I should mention that we had our questions submitted in advance. So those are the questions that I'm going to be referencing when people submit them, and the league vetted these questions. So that's where we're going to be focusing on this evening. And I think we have so many, I'm not even sure we'll get to all of them, but I tried to prioritize what I think the public would be most interested in hearing. So I hope you agree with me at the end of the evening. So the first question, and I think this is probably on everybody's mind, but from this perspective of the superintendents and our regional superintendent, what is the current status of student learning losses post-pandemic? And what are districts doing? What are your districts doing to bring students back to pre-pandemic academic learning levels?
I'm happy to jump in. Our data immediately post-pandemic did not show a learning loss in District 41. But I know that I think it's safe to say we see that kids are different, and perhaps the way that looks in school is slightly different. It might come out more in behaviors, it might come out in school anxiety, but we're monitoring our data over time. Our data continues to move in the right direction, but we're focusing more on that gap, and in some instances for us, there are places where the achievement gap has gotten bigger. So looking closely at our data to determine who has access and needs intervention, and expanding what our interventions look like. For us, it's been becoming more consistent across the buildings that this is who has access to an intervention, regardless of what school you're in, what is the pool of interventions that we have to pull from. We are very robust in our staffing and our supports for intervention. It's just tightening that up and being more consistent. Our data doesn't show significant loss related to the pandemic, but we are continuing to work on closing a gap that was there prior to the pandemic and still exists.
Doug, you want to take that for District 89?
Sure. I think students, families, everybody kind of was impacted different by the pandemic. And that's one of the challenges we face is, that's why we're looking at our multi-tiered system of supports. How are we supporting students with interventions? That's why we're also bringing in more mental health supports, looking at different, both extracurricular, opportunities for students. That's why we're also looking at the curriculum we've been using, and maybe we can impact students different with different opportunities in that curriculum. We continue to see it's different when you walk in the buildings because for a little while there, I think students weren't used to going to school and they had to relearn how to do that. So even in kindergarten this year compared to last year, students heading right to their desks and sitting down, you can tell that they've already had some of that versus last year and the previous year where students were coming into classrooms and not sure what that environment looks like. And so those things you just have a different feeling right now about how this year is going so far and the smiles you're seeing. And So we continue to work to support all students, and I think we're going to continue to see those results evident in our assessment data.
Just a little personal note, Doug, I wanted to say, since you come from District 204, I am the proud grandma of a second grader at the Steck Eagle. So that'll mean something to Doug, but not to the rest of you.
Does she have Miss Sister?
What's it?
Does she have Miss Sister right now?
Speller.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, she came from first grade to second grade with him, and he is just ecstatic. He's so excited. How about you, Dave, at the high school?
Well, I just want to hand it to my elementary, middle school colleagues for having an educational experience during those 2 years. And it was very difficult. And I thought we did a really good job with hybrid. We had a lot of families choose to come in. And a lot of students were on Zoom at the same time. Our teachers were amazing. But I have no idea how you accomplish that with first graders, kindergartners, and young kids. So no, our scores did drop 21, 22, and all the metrics, SAT score, AP participation, and the scores at the end of the year from the exams. We had challenges with attendance. So this last year, full year, was really trying to come out of it. And so we have our scores from this last grade for our metrics have gone up. One thing we've learned is we've taken away from all the extra resources support of during that difficult 2 years to continue those, to complement students. For example, at the end of the semester before final exams, our principals have initiated so many effective supports that extend deadlines, have open up the schools in the evenings and the weekends for study tables, just a variety of different things that really help students sort of catch up and come alongside them as they strive to at least make up the words so it's a passing grade. A lot of families struggle, and was reflected in the students' performance. So it's like a little bit of an hangover. We're still coming out.
Sure. Amber, would you want to address this from the regional office's perspective?
Absolutely. I appreciate what you just mentioned about attendance, because that was something we saw a major increase in our referrals at the regional level. And we brought on more staff to help address that, because when I started, we had two folks who were supporting the entire county. And it's so we scrounged together a few extra dollars and were able to bring on some additional staff. And they are working really hard to help bring resources to families. And like Melissa mentioned, we have students that explore refusal behaviors. It's not being truant, like I don't like math class, I'm gonna ditch and not tell my parents. It's they have truly strong anxiety and emotional disturbances that are causing them to not go to school, and they need therapy right away for that. They need someone helping them to do that. And when our interventionists go in, all of them, all but one, have a social work background. The one that doesn't, though, is probably it's as if she is one. Amazing, and they go in and they can actually do work with the students. Besides that, we are offering a lot of training on MTSS, like Doug mentioned, multi-tiered system of support, which addresses both the social emotional needs of students as well as the academic needs. Just trying to offer as much professional development to help the school be able to implement those systems.
Well, that is a great segue. There's another question here that talks about how the society is creating so much more anxiety among adults, but we keep reading about how children are experiencing this rise in pressure. Melissa, Doug, you guys have already kind of referred to social emotional learning a little bit in some of your efforts, but could you address a little bit more specifically how social emotional learning is being addressed in the schools, in the elementary schools and high schools?
Absolutely. So we have a universal curriculum, social emotional learning curriculum throughout our district, so that all kids are exposed, and we can't assume they're coming to school with those skills. So they're being taught here. Hadley is doing things, they've always had a homework period, but restructuring their days so kids have that opportunity to engage directly with adults and get the triage support that they need. And then in addition to what we do for everybody, you know, we also utilize a tiered system of supports within the realm of SEL. And so, you know, it's access to clinicians that we have in the district to meet specific needs, whether it's in a small group or individual. And then we've now, as I said, branched out to where we're helping families connect with local resources, but also bringing resources in outside of the school days to support kids and families.
Doug?
Not a lot to add to that. We use Character Strong in our school district. It's a regular tiered one approach at K through 5, and then integrated with character development in our middle schools. And so that's our programming, but many other things are similar. And as I said, you know, we increased our you know, to have psychologists and social workers in our middle, because our social workers were kind of getting tapped to do both, and we had psychologists were running across multiple buildings, which was a challenge. And so we increased those supports in the buildings. We are off to a great start though, and we're seeing those things. Obviously, we battle things in schools like social media and those other challenges that are presented that way. And so, you know, we continue to stay on top of it and provide as many supports as we can for both students and families.
Dave, do you want to talk about the high schools?
Social workers and psychologists, and that's our money, a couple of each of the high schools. And then we also have a curriculum where we talk a lot about informal relationships. It's only difficult. All our students, similar to middle school, teachers have maybe 120 students a day. So, but deliberately and intentionally building relationships and making students feel important, and we know their name, know something about them, they can be heard. One high school, the first 3 days of the school year, it was all social emotional, right? They had talked about culture in the classroom, they talked about culture in the building one day, and then obviously culture in the community, and had all sorts of activities just to start the year connecting and feeling that belonging before we started academic. So it's a lot of effort, and activities is a key pathway. We have you know, dozens of varsity teams, but we'll go all the way down to lower level. Like we have multiple C teams for basketball, right? We have a C team tournament, and if kids want to have an interest in the club or activity, they can find a sponsor. We fund that. So research shows obviously when you're connected to an activity of interest after school, makes a big difference as well.
Amber from the regional office.
So I also co-chair the prevention leadership team, and we do the Illinois Youth Survey every 2 years, and we did see the data on that showing students answering, indicating that they are feeling a lot more anxiety, and so then that data helps us determine what we're going to do as a prevention leadership team to make some changes. I have to give a shout out to District 87 also, that just does a phenomenal job with the reality team group and working with the health department and the regional office and at the side to give input on what are things we can do to help students, because unfortunately, a lot of times when there are those mental health concerns or anxiety, they might try to self-medicate, and then that leads to other issues, right?
Thank you. Dave mentioned some legislation in Springfield, and you know, you're at a League of Women Voters event, so we have to talk about legislation. It's very important to us. So 2 new laws have recently passed in Illinois. One is the Racism-Free Schools Law, which changes the school code. This one passed in early August and goes into effect next August. It requires a policy about race-related harassment and discrimination, age-appropriate information about race-related and sexual harassment, among other topics. The second is the book ban. The law passed in early June and goes into effect in January 2024. Governor Pritzker noted that 70 attempts were made last year to take banned books off Illinois library shelves. What the law states is that state funds may be withheld from schools or libraries that ban books. How will these the laws be implemented and how will they change what is currently done in your schools?
You know, we're fortunate as Dave's district is and does, is that we all work with wonderful legal counsel. And so when there are big shifts in the law, such as all of the requirements about harassment and racism, they prepare training information, policy changes, and so we're in the process of looking at all of that. I don't see, I mean, that is something that we are very proactive about and serious about, regardless of the law change, so I don't see dramatic impact because we already tried to be all over that. But we are waiting for the materials to come through and the policy changes, and so we'll react to that as we need to. The book ban, I think, plays out a little bit differently at elementary than it does in the high school world. You know, I don't see that having a big impact. We don't ban books. Our questions that come from parents more are about what's developmentally appropriate, and you know, kids have to be supervised. You know, it's not the same as, you know, a high school or going in to use materials. So we'll work with families to say, you know, if you really don't want them to check out books, you don't have to, but one person's threshold for what's acceptable or developmentally appropriate can be very different from the next person's. And so I don't see that having a big impact on us. What it does is, you know, helping parents navigate when their kids are not independent, using that, you know, we really can't do a one-on-one personal escort to the you know, our library to scan a book with a student, you know, and know what that parent's threshold is. So it comes down to a lot of conversation between the teacher and the parent, or the principal and the parent, but I don't anticipate that the book ban will have a big impact on us.
Okay, we've had a request from our online listeners that they can't always hear our panelists. So if you could bring those microphones just a little bit closer to you
Sure.
and speak up, because we want them to be able to hear what you have to say. Other thoughts about the law changes?
I don't have much to add. We do appreciate when the state passes legislation that they give us time to do whatever proper training and implementation. So with the Racism Free Schools Act, that's supposed to be implemented by August 2024. So they do give us time. I mean, we already handle any kind of concerns related to harassment and discrimination extremely serious, and have a process for that outlined in our grievance procedures to focus on those things. But you know, anytime there's changes like that, you want to make sure that you're ensuring that you have the proper training in that, and that those things occur. We're fortunate to have legal counsel to assist us on the policies to make sure that we're also following what's expected there. And similar, we have a process if there is a concern, if parents have a concern about the age appropriateness of books, we have a process to look at those. So we don't anticipate that this would have much of an impact on our school district.
Okay, and Dave?
Well, I'm just glad our policy spoke to the appeal process going to the principals instead of the superintendent. Give it up for Dr. Monahan. He chaired the committee, had 2 books. He did a great job. The principals did a great job. It took about 2.5 months. They had a large, well-represented committee. We had, I think, 9 families appeal, and appeals were individual, and we were very deliberate, very methodical, and did thorough research, and they did a great job. I felt bad we wore out Dr. Monahan his last semester. He's rusty.
Oh, he still has a lot of energy. Amber, anything from your perspective?
Each of the 42 school districts do have their own policies, but
Right.
usually when any law changes occur, we try to bring together resources for them as we would anything, no matter what the topic is. So
Certainly. Okay, thank you. So we've addressed the issues of social emotional learning, and we've addressed achievement gap and information related to how we're helping kids catch up. But I think the public is also really interested in and continues to be focused on this issue of school safety. So the next question I'm going to pose to our panel is, Since school safety is such a fear for so many, in August, our new Illinois League of Women Voters president told us that our state league will soon be examining gun policies. What guidelines for safety are standards in your schools? What is the emergency protocol in your schools? And also we'll turn to Amber at the end and ask the ROE how you support consistent safety practices in the school. Okay.
Sure. This is obviously a priority in our schools. I'll probably steal some of Amber's thunder, but I'm gonna give credit to DuPage because there is no other county doing the same work that's happening in DuPage, particularly around the area of safety. And so while I'm not gonna share our protocols because that would be compromising our safety, you know, what I can say is our district has signed on a mutual aid agreement. The regional office has hired a school safety expert who has been a game changer for our districts. And so with all of the jurisdictions that feed into the DuPage schools, we're all speaking a common language. Our first responders know how to respond with our common language. Our protocols mirror each other in terms of what happens in response to different situations in our schools. Our level of preparedness is vastly different than when I first stepped into this 5 years ago. And for us, we just finished our first round of safety visits in our schools. One of the Glen Ellyn sergeants come and does a review. We talk through our protocols because it's about building muscle memory. And we do weekly safety scenarios that we send out to our staff, and we ask them, you know, how would you react in this situation? And it really is about building muscle memory and automaticity to react in those events. And so we spend time every week focusing on safety. Again, so much has come through the work of the regional office and the state's attorney's office that it has been a game changer for our schools.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we spend a lot of time focused on safety, which we should be. That immediately is always one of my first concerns is, are people safe in situations and what steps are we taking to be proactive with that? It was great knowing when I came here that they were working on the secure entrances. That would be something in place in our schools because that does add another level of protection. But we, prior to the school year, all of our administrators we met with, we have 3 different law enforcement agencies that work with our school district, DuPage County Sheriff, Wheaton, and Glen Ellyn. So we had a meeting with them in the beginning part of the year to make sure that we're consistent across our school district and how we're going to respond to situations. I don't want to go specifically into those procedures, but also then what does practice look like in our buildings? Our middle school today did have a practice law enforcement drill or lockdown drill to see what that looks like. And we noticed some things that we need to adjust to make sure that we're prepared for. So we do a lot of practice with those procedures. Those give us an opportunity to check and make sure our 2-way radios are working or that other systems in our building are working or that you can call from different areas of the building. There's an emergency. It does give us those opportunities. I mean, just how that communication works with the emergency responders, it also helps us build relationships with it. I want to give credit to our law enforcement agencies. I mean, they get in our buildings regular. We don't have school resource officers in 89, but they are still a regular presence in our building. They want to know every nook and cranny of our building. And so I give so much credit to them and the support that they give us. And so it's a wonderful relationship to have with them, and it makes it a lot easier to conduct those practice drills and have those conversations and to have that consistency.
So we have liaison officers from the local public safety, so they're front and center when we do tabletop scenarios, practice scenarios, evacuation drills. They know our buildings well, lots of really good communication networks, local public safety. Not just during school day, but obviously after hours and on weekends. And we have done some renovation in our vestibules and secure entrances, but we need, obviously the referendum we're talking about would really upgrade that. Cameras everywhere, which really help. But I'll be honest, you probably saw in May, right in the middle of AP testing, West had 3, 2 were Bondress, one in Glenbard, and then we had another one south, all within a 10-day period. Very difficult time of year. Those are very difficult to navigate through because you want to take your threat seriously, and it's very disruptive. It is very disruptive. So there's just a lot of disappointment having to experience that. To have 2,300 kids stop their learning at a pivotal time of the year. And as you know, our off-campus, they're marching down Ryford to Ackerman. And it was unfair to the students. So I think 3 of the 4 callers were identified, which was good because the whole justice legal system will see them through as to what their punishment and what their due process for their bad prank. But that is something we continue to do.
Okay, wants to maybe still a little bit of my thunder, but this, I'm really excited to go back and tell John, like you said, we did hire a specialist, John Andershed, who has experience in SRO as a police officer. He was director of safety for U46, a very large school district in Elgin. And he has really taken our school safety task force to the next level, which we find really helpful. So the school safety task force formed after Columbine. And it's representatives from all 42 school districts coming together 4 times a year to talk about safety. That's one of a kind. North Cook, that's the regional office just north of Chicago. They had a fire at one of their high schools, and the regional super called and said, you know, how'd you get that intergovernmental agreement? We need that here. We want to be able to send mutual aid. When something like this happens, and you know, we weren't ready then. When it's well, our task force has been working on this for a long time, and they've been collaborating for a long time. So I just want to, you know, give kudos to the predecessor who started that, and all the 42 school districts take the time to be there and work together on behalf of the safety of the kids. And talking about common language is huge. When you're talking about everybody does it a little differently. Try to have that common language and emergency. It's so important. Heavy lift, and we are working on that now. We have multiple trainings for reunification. We supply every school district with kits, public and private. There's some funding that we got, so we wanted to make sure that they had what they needed for that reunification plan. If any kind of massive event happens, and not necessarily a bomb or a shooter, it could be something like a fire or something else. So, in fact, Wheaton School, I really appreciated. Someone that was there at the meeting said, you know, we're a large school district and we're in favor of the mutual aid because we know that in a moment of crisis, you do have the staff there who are going to try to take care of the students, but they're going through it too. So to have other trained folks be able to come over and relieve them is huge. So we're really excited about what we're doing here in DuPage, and we're excited that people are hosting too. So I'm proud of all of us.
Yeah. Another thing that we keep hearing about in the public is the teacher shortage. So the next question deals with that question of how difficult is it for our districts represented here to hire and retain teachers? We're also hearing about educators leaving the field, so you know, the attrition problem. What we see across the country is that the response of some states is to lower standards to prepare educators. As a teacher educator, I am not in favor of that. I'll say that right off the bat. So are any of the districts having difficulties filling positions? If so, you know, what positions are more difficult to hire to?
For the first time in a few years, we were almost fully staffed at the opening of the year. But I will tell you, while we are an attractive place to work and be, and we can fill our positions, it's taking a significant amount of effort and energy to do that. So our recruiting efforts and time spent interviewing, time spent recruiting people, that's where we're feeling it. So we're having to work a lot harder to fill our positions. So fortunately, we are a district that attracts applicants, not as many. And as I said, we're putting a significant amount of energy, time and energy into recruiting. So we are feeling it. You know, teacher shortages in higher needs areas, school psychologists are to fill positions. Special education teachers in some ways, particularly once the year has started, are difficult positions to fill. It really depends. So while we're filled, it hasn't been easy. So, and we're seeing that get harder and harder. So I do think we will all be experiencing it at some point in time. So it's up to us to find and identify those pipelines. We're doing a lot of work. You know, our high school is Glenbard West, and so we're hosting several students who are on that path to become educators and get them into our classrooms. It's hard to do a pipeline as an elementary district, but we can certainly work with a high school district to get those kids in and give them those opportunities. So while we're filled, I will tell you it's taking much more effort to do that, to fill and stay filled.
Sure. Other responses?
Sure, passionate about this area. You know, I was doing assistant soup for HR for a while, and so we kind of saw that this has been coming for a while. I think we're a little bit more fortunate in the DuPage area. Typically, we're going to be the last in the state probably that's going to feel a lot of those pressures, but I think there's an educational shortage, not just teachers. We're feeling it with bus drivers, we're feeling it with our teaching assistants and paraprofessionals. They all have vital roles in our district. And then it's those positions like psychologists, social workers, speech and language, are, you know, especially if you're looking for math and science, some of those areas are starting to get more and more difficult to find people to fill those positions. But even getting lunchroom supervisors, those are all challenges that we're facing right now. And so, you know, trying to figure out what are those things we can do to encourage people to go into education and to be passionate about that field. I 100% agree with you. Lowering the standards is not the way to go with that, but we have to figure out something to turn that back around, and it's going to take a while. Because you've got to get people educated to be in those roles. And so we have to figure out a way to work together on that. If it's more grow your own programs or figuring out those types of things to do to get people to want to be in the education system.
Sure. How about the high school perspective?
Yeah, and Glenbard, we're still getting high numbers of candidates. We are fortunate that we're able to often hire experienced teachers for other districts because they want to come work with D87. So we get them lower on the salary schedule, but their experience, we don't have to spend as much time in induction training and transition. So most positions, there are a few specialties that we've started a little bit, but substitutes, we bumped up the pay and we seem to be doing okay there. I just gotta make a comment though. During COVID, I noticed the amazing public safety officials, firemen, policemen, nurses especially, were really praised, and it was sort of the opposite, right? And I think it had to do with the national trends that teachers were sort of spoken of in disparaging ways, and I think it's caught up in the crossfire of maybe the national politics. It does not happen in other Western developed countries at all. Teachers are very respected. They have livable wages that are definitely whatever they would call middle class, and maybe it's because we're so diverse with 50,000 school systems, and each state has their own governance oversight of schools, but it is not good, and that impacts the career pipeline. There's a significantly. The decline is significant in all teachers of ed colleges of potential teachers. It is a big problem.
Yeah.
So, maybe not for your kids, but maybe for your grandkids across the country. Quality individuals who feel respected and appreciated. And with livable salaries. And Illinois is great, DuPage County is great, we're one of the higher funded and our districts are well funded, so I'm speaking. Not of us, but of national problem, it's a big problem.
Post-pandemic, did you see teacher retention issues in your districts?
You know what I hear coming up a lot, and I know that this is an Illinois issue, really is the tier 2 pension. I know pension subject is a very touchy one, depending on your thoughts on that. But the change for tier 2 is a significant difference from tier 1 TRS. And so when an early career person or somebody considering their career path looks at the difference between tier 1 and tier 2, it has made it a much less desirable, and that's something that you hear Illinois legislators say they know they have to tackle. That tier 2 is a big issue. It doesn't cause people to want to give that serious consideration, in addition to what Dave says about being in, a profession that is held with high regard and treated with respect. There's some longer term impacts, such as the tier 2 pension that, will have to be looked at. We're definitely seeing an issue.
This example of Melissa's point, tier 2, you collect your pension, which is about the size of the Social Security check. You can't collect it until 67. All right, so imagine would you want your kindergarten teacher and they teach 45 years, and your child gets them at the end of their career when they deserve to be enjoying their retirement, but they can't. So it's a big problem. That adds to the point earlier.
Okay, we're gonna shift gears a little bit. Melissa, when you were describing some of your initiatives for this year, you did reference your technology specialist. So we're gonna turn to technology for a moment. From the perspective of your districts, what new technologies are you excited about? You can also address, and I think Doug did this a little bit earlier, how social media is affecting your classrooms, both positively and negatively, perhaps. Also, maybe you could comment a little bit about Chat GPT and how it may be impacting, or the perception of how it will impact classroom instruction in the future.
I think Chat GPT, you can equate it to when the internet first came and how it was a game changer for life in general, and this will be the same. Are we seeing a huge impact now? No, but our work needs to be about what role does it play, because it certainly will. So we're stepping into that, and other larger districts are stepping into that and learning from each other. And we have no doubt that the regional office is going to be supporting districts with that as well. Social media, to be honest with you, is such a mixed blessing. I mean, it can be a wonderful communication tool, but it can strip people of, there is no more falling down the stairs and the only people that you're embarrassed in front of are the few people that saw it. Things are captured on video, shared widely. You don't just have a fight with your friend and just you and your friend, everybody's engaged. And so the impact on kids' well-being is tremendous, and tremendous in a negative way. And so trying to figure out where does it fit and how does it fit, but how do you protect kids also? Our district recently signed on to the lawsuit regarding social media, and it isn't about money, it's about changing those algorithms so that, it's just such a complicated issue. But the world has changed for kids. You don't get to fail privately anymore. You don't get to be embarrassed just in front of a few people. So the pressure that they live in every single day, I can't look back and know what that was like, because that wasn't our reality. But we see it all the time. Friendships are lost over social media. And so staying on top of that, I think if you would ask our counselors, it's an everyday, all the time thing. You know, and while there are so many great things that come with social media, we also know no problem is ever solved on social media. Pick up the phone, whether it's because you're upset with me or the principal or the teacher. Nothing gets solved on social media. You solve things by talking to people. And that's a skill that kids don't necessarily know because their lives are being played out on social media. So I hate to sound like a downer on it, but I see the struggle that it causes kids. And the struggle for us to keep up with the problems it causes for kids because they're always one step ahead of us. You know, and they're always one step ahead of all the things that we put in to prevent some things from happening and the workarounds. So it is a constant issue and presence in schools.
Let me say a little bit. I mean, I wasn't in '89, but we were seeing some things with where behaviors were occurring in schools just so it could be recorded. And challenges that way, so it could be sent out there, and then that would spread, and that would be contagious. And there is this. I do think there's a lot of students or a lot of people out there that think that's an opportunity for you to become famous, how many followers you can get, those types of things, and what that can do. So those are some of the challenges I see with social media. I appreciate, I know DuPage ROE once again has been trying to bring educators together to have conversations about AI and how that's impacting school districts. I think it's going to be harder and harder to tell whether people are using AI or not, which means we're going to have to really think about how we guide our instruction and how we guide students. It's pretty easy where you could just, you know, have AI create a presentation for you, but you still have to input what you want that to be about. And so how do we use that as a tool? It's going to just keep, I think, changing and changing. And as you said, just as the internet hit, I think we're going to see the same thing here. And it's really figuring out how do we make it a tool. Right away, I know a lot of school districts are like, we got to block this, we got to do that. I think they just want to slow things down because there's so many out there now, and we just have to figure out how do we take advantage of that to help educate students.
So we were one of the first high school districts to roll out devices, iPads, not Chromebooks, 11 years ago. And so it was a great utility, great tool, student management system, communicating with the teacher and students, going paperless, being really efficient on searches. Honestly, I think we received kind of pendulum has swung back just in my mind where technology is so accessible and is so disruptive. I don't mean disruptive negatively. It has attention spans of kids in such a way where I think we almost have to sort of be cognizant of that and sort of design learning with that in mind. For example, we have, I mentioned earlier, we have a unit design process where PLCs work together and they design a unit, incorporating the profile of the graduate, transformational skills, incorporating the standards, content skills, and incorporating strong writing. That's a big priority for us. Writing is slow thinking, and kids don't think deliberately slowly. They're thinking quick and fast. So reading complex tasks and having difficult tasks from text to slow down or light is sort of old fashioned. But I think that's one of the best things we're doing right now. I'm not a believer that you can come out with stellar education just, you know, like if I was a homeschool student and getting all the sources done online. I think the beauty of education with our talented teachers, designing learning experiences where kids are working together, they're experiencing failure, they're working at it, they're thinking, they're problem solving, they're identifying problems, they're struggling, they have an ambitious, cognitively ambitious task. And sometimes technology counters that. The technology gives you something instant. And so that sounds like an old Scrooge, but my mind is kind of veering the other way where we're gonna slow down and just keep it in check. Keep technology's role in check in the learning space.
Amber, you want to talk a little bit about what's happening at the regional office with technology?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we are in the planning stages for a conference in June. I wrote down Kelly's name right here. So I'll have to invite her people on that, but both talking about AI and social media, I think that we're hearing across the county is a struggle. In fact, we were talking with some high school folks who have gone back to the idea of we're gonna have the kids put their phones in either, locked couches or different types of couches in the room so that they're away. And the feedback they've gotten from the kids has been really positive, saying, wow, this class actually went by really fast. I was paying attention. So, I think that's really good though, that we're thinking about how do we balance the use of technology for learning and also where it's not needed.
Okay, great. Well, I think we're gonna do one last question. And for this, the League of Women Voters is giving you all a magic wand. And you will grant you one wish. And if you have one wish to really, advance your mission in your district, what would you wish for?
Some know, not everyone, but this is my 5th year, but this is my last year in the district. I'm retired. And so I thought about what would I like to leave behind, or if I could change one thing, what would that be? For us, what I wish for this district is that as a community, we could figure out how to come together and elevate the work of the district. There is so much more left to do, but sometimes our district is pulled in different directions. And I just feel like the strength that we could find as a district, if we could figure out a way to unify, not on everything, there's always going to be opposing opinions and differences of opinions, and that's what makes the world interesting and great. But we need to figure out how to harness the power of our community together to uplift the district, and not pull it apart. So if I had one wish, it would be to figure out that, and I'm gonna keep doing that until June 30th.
Good luck with that. Doug, how about you?
That's a hard question, be 3 months in. Something I would say just in education in general, we have a very limited amount of time with students in the big picture of things. And I do wish that all students had access to early childhood education. Right now, compulsory attendance in Illinois is 6 years old. And so that a lot of times means students don't really have to start with us until 1st grade. And you really gotta try to make an impact by the time students finish 3rd grade, if you want to see those changes, or else you're gonna really struggle to make a difference after that. And so that's just something that's not 89 specific, but something that's been weighing on me as an educator about how we can get all students at a better starting place in our school system.
Great, thank you.
I think our wish, my wish, obviously, there's a lot of things, but one that stands out this year is our effort, the board's effort, and Mark De La Rosa is our president in the back, waiting Mark, is our effort to highlight our significant facilities needs. As I mentioned, we've invested well the last 10 years in the Farm Safe Dry, and our buildings run well, and but they're old and tired from an educational standpoint for our students. We don't have circulation spaces, gathering spaces, breakout spaces, project spaces. They're public buildings, as you know, and the corridors are tight and narrow. We don't have inviting, interesting entryways. And if you look at all the high school districts around us, Downers, Wheaton's, Naperville's, 88 with Littlebrook and Addison, they've all done this work 15, 10, 20 years ago. And so we're due, and so that's my desire is our students spend a lot of time in these buildings, so having open, inviting spaces that really match the educational directions that we're going, excited about that.
Okay, and Amber, you get the last word on behalf of all of the students of DuPage County.
So, well, I'll bring one student who I brought with me tonight, she's made it I asked her this question in the car. And she said, oh, I really wish for better toilet paper. So, so I thought I went. So I think going back to safety and that we have, you know, each of our unique school districts across the county that support their local communities. I really appreciate each and every one of them. I wish we could have the funding to help with the resources, to help bring them all up to the level of basic safety and have that supported from funding. That's my opinion.
Well, I think we all gave a lot of information. Could we thank our speakers tonight? Oh, to Candy.
Well, thank you. Thank you all so much. I mean, thinking that it's the end of school year and here you are spending hours with us. We really, really appreciate it. And plus it was just amazing that you would all do it tonight. So that was awesome. So thanks to all of you as well. And Pam, wonderful job. I wanted to mention a few upcoming events for us. Let's see, October 17th, we have our first democracy drop-in. It's gonna be like a hands-on thing that you can help whatever our project is gonna be, maybe write letters or contact our representatives. This will be October 17th from 3 to 4 p.m. at the Glen Library. There will be a community meeting on October 26th. That will be our meeting called Democracy, which you can do. Geared at our members to sort of get everybody enthused about all the opportunities we have to strengthen democracy, which is really needed these days. And then November 9th, Kwame Raoul will be coming to the Civic Awareness Group. That will be at Cantini. And then we have a holiday party in December, and January 25th is our annual State of the Village at the police department. So I hope we'll get to see you again at something coming up, and thank you all for coming.